Okay, our next speaker, we're going to be still at the pillar number 3, which is addressing workplace stresses. And this is one of the reasons why companies actually lose their best people, and it's got nothing to do with work. Our next speaker knows this all too well. His name is Dr. Wayne Chong. He's a geropsychologist and a workforce longevity strategist with a PhD in psychology. As a co-founder of Geropsych Consultant, we work with corporate leaders and government agencies to integrate caregiving into workplace strategy. His research has shaped national policies, he's been cited in Parliament, and more importantly, is rooted in his own personal caregiving journey. So today, he's going to share with you a very practical 5-phase framework to help you spot the silent caregiver burnout and show you how to retain your top talent without burning out from culture. Alright, so with that, please welcome Dr. Wayne Freeman Chong. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you. How many of you here know somebody who is a caregiver? Or if yourself, you are a caregiver? Yes? Thank you. I see a third. Just during the break, I talked to 4 people. 2 of them know somebody or is somebody who is a caregiver with a father-in-law or father or mother-in-law or mother who has dementia or some other condition. Now, what I'm going to tell you may not be so strange to you after all. Because if you are now in an organization, a big organization, right, a corporate, an MNC, probably a good percentage of your employees are caregivers. Make a guess, right? Shout out the answer if you know, okay? What do you think is that percentage of an organization employee who might be caregivers? Anybody? 1 in 5, thank you. No? Higher? Any other guesses? 1 in 2. That's right, you got it. Thank you for talking with me during the networking session. Right, as you will see, and these are not statistics that were done by small researchers. These are official, nationally representative statistics published by the Singapore Ministry of Manpower. And that is the latest, 2024, November. And I'll show you later. You see, for me, I have been a caregiver not once, but 3 times in my life. When I was 21 years old, I cared for my mother's mother. She was frail, wheelchair-bound, and my mom was battling depression. Then, after her demise, I thought it was all over. My mother was stricken with cancer of the ovaries. So I cared for her. I became a caregiver a second time. I thought I was more experienced. There were things I learned I never thought I had to learn. And when she passed on, very sad, I thought I now finally can take a break. Unfortunately, my dad, just 1 month after my mom's demise, got stricken with stroke. It's called transient ischemic attack, 3 times. Right? So basically, he had trouble breathing after that. And I became a caregiver a 3rd time. And that was just before the pandemic, and that led on into the pandemic. So I thought that, okay, surely somebody like me who has been a caregiver once, twice, 3 times, would be able to spot another caregiver. I thought so, until this happened in my company. You see, this is 2023, 2nd quarter, right? You can see if I can I point the, okay, it doesn't work here. But you can see essentially revenue, right, in pink is falling, right? From the 2nd quarter of 2023 to the 1st quarter. By the time I realized it, revenue has been falling 3 straight quarters in a row. Okay? Now, this company was led at that time by my business partner. Well, after we co-founded the consultancy called Geropsych Consultants Private Limited, for 4 years I was leading it, and then in around 2021, I left that to become a full-time research fellow in a university, in the medical school. So he was leading it. 3 straight quarters. I was worried. I thought he would have been more worried. So it came to a point where we had a directors meeting, a regular directors meeting, right? And I thought he would be offering plans and recovery solutions, go through the budgets and succession planning and all that. And before I realized the meeting was almost over, and I thought something was not quite right. how could a leader of a company, and we weren't a big company, we only had 10 at that time, really a small SME, but looking at these stats could just say it's over. It didn't make sense to me. So I said to him, bro, do you have any plans to bring in more revenue? Anything new we could do? And he looked at me like, okay, blank. That's a bit worrying. But I want to be his friend. We were friends to begin with. We started this company together, right? So I said to him second time, okay, these looks like our finances are not doing that well. Is that, are we going to be recovering soon? And then he, you can still remember that. He looked at me blank, shoulders slumped, and then he looked down and he mumbled something I don't remember. I probably couldn't even hear what he was saying. I hope he wasn't cursing me under his breath. There was silence. The third time, I think I lost it, and I really regretted it. Because I said to him, hey bro, are you giving up? Are you giving up on our company, our geropsych consultants? I thought we were in this together. I almost went into a lecture, but told myself, okay, what's going on? I think was hopefully the worst thing I said then. I didn't launch into anything more aggressive than that. And then he took the longest time to respond to me. And his answer, I didn't believe I would hear it for the first time. That 3 seconds I think he took felt like 3 hours. From his slumped position, rising up, putting his index finger to his nose, catching a breath, look at me, not really in the eye, but kind of looking behind me like he's looking at me. I don't know if you know how that felt. Wayne, I'm not giving up. I'm giving care. I'm giving care to my dad. So you see, he actually became a caregiver just about 2 quarters ago, before this happened. Right? And I didn't know. How can I be? I mean, I've been a caregiver, right? Surely, I've been his friend. He became a caregiver and I didn't know it. I didn't spot any signs, right? I didn't spot it through all the usual checklists, budgeting, all the measures that we had. And we are not a big company. We're not like 10,000 employees. There are only 10. I didn't spot it. God, I thought I'm a bad director. I really thought I was. And a lousy friend. And especially so when I have been through caregiving myself 3 times. It looked like that. Each time he reported to work after we found out, it was like he came to work or he was sitting at home working, and there was this father with glaucoma, disease of the eye, just waiting for him to do things. And even after he got a helper to help the father, it didn't help because the father kept looking for him to do things, either calling him on the phone while he's in the office or just having no boundaries between his work time and personal or family time. He couldn't concentrate. So work productivity fell. He was holding that portfolio, right? He got those things done, but he didn't have that, I don't know if you call it energy, the vibes, the oomph to go that further, to spot problems and solve them, to talk with people, to network. He couldn't bring himself to do that. No wonder our stats didn't show up these things, because these are qualitative indicators. It doesn't come out in the numbers. Right? How well you manage a relationship with your customer. How many do you have good quality follow-up calls or follow-up meetings? It doesn't show up in the stats, right? So that was him. So part of me, I was so empathetic with him because I know how bad it could have been. But part of me, I was wearing my director's hat. Cannot lay. No money, company will close shop, right? if it continues going down? I was at a dilemma, right? Very fortunately, by that time, after having worked in the university as a research fellow for 2 years, I have some access to some research that we developed. And we managed to, although it wasn't tried and tested as of then, 2023, right? I put together what I know from my caregiving research, right, regarding workforce management, and I realized I had to go in to make some changes. And I also had to do it in a way that allows my business partner to continue in his role. So here I was unable to stem that hidden caregiving crisis before it stemmed my talent, unfortunately. And to give you the short of it is that after some months of intervention, our company finances went up. It was thriving. We are thriving. You will see in the chart later that, right, it continued to go down until a certain point when it plateaued, and then it went up. How are we able to do that? You see, what happened to me I don't know if it could happen to you. Okay? Why I say this is because I have been a caregiver 3 times and I didn't spot the signs. And we know the statistics, 1 in 2 employees are caregivers in Singapore, right? And I don't know if you have the tools to spot the signs. I don't know if you have those sensitive questions and measurements to ask. I don't know if your managers, your leaders are trained in those, the administration. So I'd like to share with you 3 things. The first business truth is that, yes, it is already disrupting our work. In fact, the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore has already identified that. In fact, they are right now, as you know, in Singapore, encouraging the flexible work arrangement, right? And in fact, right now in the papers, there is, Channel News Asia, I think recently reported that many employees are saying, that's great, but not enough. I don't know if you read that. Of course, your question will be, how much is enough? Right? How much is really enough? Unfortunately, in Singapore, we don't have a national caregiving policy, not yet. So it is incumbent or imperative on us as business leaders, as corporate executives, to manage our workforce until such time we can influence the Ministry of Manpower. Many of our caregivers face 2 roles. Okay, so the other statistic that we know is 1 in 5 are actually juggling, so to speak. 1 in 5 are actually out of the workforce because of caregiving or household chores. So when I talked about spotting the signs, these are some things that we really could do. These are things. Ask some questions that help promote. My supervisor shares work ideas with me. I can depend on my supervisor. These are questions that we could ask, that we could adapt from. This is from the Boyer's scale, the Boyer's social support scale. There are other scales like this in a frame that we could use, right? How about work-related support from your meaning the employee's organization? Does the employee feel that his or her organization considers his or her goals and values, cares about his aspirations and opinions? The second truth, the second thing that I realized about, just from my own experience in the company, my leader is at risk. Right? If I do not have a succession plan, if we did not have a situation where, let's say, if he leaves or if I unfortunately, due to the wrong reason, due to misunderstanding, fired him at a board meeting, okay? If I didn't have that, the business would go down. Right? When it comes to talent retention, I don't know about you, which generation is most associated with quiet quitting? Do you know? You heard of the term called quiet quitting? Yes? People keep quiet, not telling you that they're disinterested or uninterested, and disengaged, and one day they just throw the letter. Right? Which generation is associated with that? Not Gen Z, it's the sandwich generation. People who have older folks to care for and younger folks to care for. These are our sandwich generation. They may be parents. They may be most likely in their mid-life, mid-career, right? So, research has shown this, right? The Society for Human Resource Management calculated that 50 to 60% of annual salary is spent just to replace attrition. Just to replace, I mean, time is spent recruiting for the time spent, the resources spent recruiting for their replacement. That's 50 to 60% of annual salary. How about the other one? 90 to 200%, that's 2 times of annual salary is spent on overall costs, depending on the level and the role or the scope of the person's work. So if the person is of top position, okay, not only does resources have to be spent recruiting for that position, but the revenue that is not being generated, or the reduction in that revenue. The management or the lack of management or the lack of coordination, right, that role candidate is supposed to perform. That's the statistic we have. So here we have some measures that we could actually support our leaders, right? If you have middle managers, you want them to learn, to plan their career. You want them to be proactive in their skill development, to consult on their careers, to learn how to network beyond their departments. Some of these things are self-directed, sure. It depends on them starting. My question to you is, do you facilitate? Do you have structures in place to facilitate these? How about things that you could do for your employees? Right? Do you give flexible work? Right? Do you have arrangements at the department level up to the division, department, and business unit level? Right? Do you, for instance, have a mentorship program where, say, a more experienced caregiver employee could guide a less experienced caregiver employee, for instance? Do you actually coach them to develop their skills, not just so narrow in their niche, but you heard of the T-shaped competencies, yes? Right? To have transferable skills such that they're also useful for another department or division, so they can continue to be engaged when the current job scope makes them feel bored. You must have heard of big companies like Deloitte, DBS, Google having caregiving or caregiver-friendly measures. I want to share with you one company that I have been involved with which I thought was quite innovative. Anyone from NTU here? Nanyang Technological University? No? You see, in NTU right now has this course called the Health Coaching for Older Adults. You can Google that and you can find it. Okay. Now, this is under the Singapore's curriculum called the CET, which is Continual Education and Training, right? You heard of that, CET, which is different from the PET. Okay. Now, on the surface, it might seem like this CET are for people who want to, do lifelong learning, to learn mid-career and beyond and continue to develop themselves. But actually, part of a big group of their clients, or you can say the learners of this course, Health Coaching for Older Adults, are actually NTU employees. They don't tell you that. Right? I know because I co-developed one of the 4 modules with the NTU. Okay, in their CET. So what I'm trying to say to you is that your model that you use, that you try to systemize or integrate into your current business processes, could well help your organization and may also help other organizations. Doesn't have to be just one track. If you are in the business of helping other organizations, workforce, other organizations, employees, think about whether some of those could be used in your own organization. So the third thing I'd like to share with you is that you should systemize your solutions. And I want to share with you this 5-phase framework that I developed with my colleagues at the medical school. 5 components there: explore, decide, plan, act, and reflect. Right. In explore, we essentially ask or help the employees ask these questions. What does success mean to me? Why am I here doing this job? What am I looking forward to? In Explore, we help the employees answer these questions, right? what are the things that I'm doing now? What do I see in what I'm doing? What are the reasons, right, that will make me feel happy, that will make me feel engaged, right? And once I have those reasons, I can set SMART goals, right? Goals that are achievable, measurable, realistic, and so on. Okay? I could make sure those goals are clarified so they could be performed. And I could act on them. Monitor my progress. If I have a mentor, if the company gives me a mentor, if I find one, this mentor could help me. If I have a sponsor, I don't know if you heard of the term sponsor, somebody who opens doors for me. And many of you are in the positions to be sponsors to your own colleagues, right? If I have a sponsor, right, this sponsor could say, look, Wayne, you did well, you surmounted the odds, right? Would you like to try this new thing? Would you like to help additionally in this to help our department? Right? Do you find yourself acting as a sponsor to your employees? Finally, this framework also has the reflect. We allow employees to think about, right now, after going through that cycle, which may take 6 months, few months to a year, right? What does it mean to me now that I continue here? Why am I still here? Am I any different from a year ago? Will I make it next 6 months, or will I quit? Right? And if you have tools like the Boyer's scale to measure, to implement, you can spot the signs. Right? You will be able to stem the caregiving crisis, which will no longer be hidden to you, because the hidden crisis is measured. Right? If you have a mentorship program, you can talk. So this is the framework. Earlier on, I was talking about revenue rising after I went back into the company to do some changes. What I really did was just really these 3 things, and I'll say that to you. The 3 things are spot the signs. Right? Spotting signs. Right now, in fact, not just my business partner is a caregiver. Literally 6 out of 10 employees are caregivers. But their work productivity didn't drop. This is how we managed to recover. We didn't ask the question point blank, are you a caregiver? I don't think many of them would just answer like that. I don't know whether you would you? The second thing we did, we supported our leaders. Those business unit leaders who had 2 or 3 under their wing, we made sure that they had the tools. We made sure their own needs are listened to, pay a bit more attention to them, and we mentored them. Third thing we did, we had a system. The framework that I showed you, called the 5-phase framework, was a system. It wasn't the only system, it's a system that we developed in the medical school with real clients from the National Healthcare Group, essentially nurses who are at the peak of, or who are very experienced and who are at the boundaries of quitting. Right? In fact, right now, if you read the news, you will hear of hospitals in Singapore paying retention bonuses to nurses. Female healthcare professionals, right, have it tough because they juggle caregiving, work, and parenting. Many of them do not want to return to the workforce even after. Right? We implemented this, and I wouldn't have time, but I can share with you the feedback that we got when we asked them, what does it mean to you when you implemented these 5-phase framework? So we essentially did 3 things: spot the signs, we supported our leaders, and we systemized our solutions so we could turn around. Now my business partner is still leading in that role. I think 80% no change to the role, but yes, the finances did go down a little bit further before it stabilized, and then it went up. Share with you this story as I close. Okay. My business partner, right? When he realized that there were these things that could be done, spot the signs, support leaders, and systemize solution. He was asking me, Wayne, where do you get this from? Is it from the which textbook do you have? right? Of course, I told him, no, there isn't a textbook. Okay. Then, how do I know? Okay, so the company is doing well. Yes, okay, so it works on us. How do I know that it works for other people? How do I know that this framework works for, right, other organizations? How to know? Right? My answer to him is, let's test it. Let's test it. Let's send it for a trial. Let's try to implement this with organizations, right? And so we started with the National Healthcare Group, right? And then we'll continue to reach out to healthcare organizations because that's where the primary base data was collected, right? But we want to also reach out to other organizations. So today, if you or your organization think that you may have this hidden caregiving crisis, if the people that you're concerned about, right, are potentially caregivers, I'll be happy to talk to you, right? Because I want to help you stem this crisis before it stems your talent. See you at the back later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.